Hey guys, a quick February review, by the way, now that we're into the second day of March. I was doing some numbers behind the scenes and wanted to show this to you. So majority of February, believe it or not, was actually above normal and warmer than normal. In the temperature department, as you know, we had 29 days compliments of that leap year, or that leap day, I should say. 14 days were above normal, 13 days were below, with 2 days right at normal. And boy, if trends continue like what we're seeing today, March might be above normal as well. It certainly is this morning. 48 degrees the current temperature with more cloud cover outside, and over the course of the next couple of hours, we're expecting for eventually some scattered showers to move on in. Not doing much, though, to really wiggle those temperatures. I think that we'll stay in the upper 40s to around 50 throughout the majority of the area. A couple of areas I want to pinpoint real quick. First off is Lake and parts of Geauga County. Parts of this area picked up a hefty amount of lake effect snow. So whenever we have rain on top of snow with warming temperatures, brief flooding could be an issue in spots. So let's dig right on in. You'll notice that up towards, say, the Thompson area, precip rates out of this thing are about 3/4 of an inch. Here's the good news. It's not a big old rain shower. It's only about 20,000 feet or so high. So again, not impressive whatsoever in terms of heights on it. You'll notice that over Lake Erie, there's more scattered showers. So if you're a mariner, something to watch out for. Not only are we seeing that back towards Sandusky, Bellevue, and Norwalk, but also over the islands where a couple of isolated rumbles of thunder are at. Current temps outside upper 40s, low 50s with the wind from the southwest between 15 to 20. Compliments of this cold front that's charging through and helping to ignite some of those showers. Tomorrow with an area of low pressure moving through, I think that we'll also see a few scattered showers in the mix by that point. Timeline looks like this. Now through lunchtime, have those umbrellas ready to go. Notice we're expecting rain showers beginning to taper some this evening. Any residual rain that we see, by the way, lingering into early tomorrow could mix with a couple of snowflakes. Tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening, another round of some wet weather. So again, a rainier pattern over the next 3 days. Temperatures in the 40s throughout before we tumble into the 30s by Saturday. And could we see a snow mix on Friday? Absolutely. Will it cancel schools? No, I don't think so. But if it did cancel schools, we got you covered right here on Channel 3 with our exclusive iAlert instant school closing system. You can always see that at wkyc.com/closings. And Maureen, I can't tell you how many kids love to see their school scrolling at the bottom of our screen.
We had a few at the end of the last week. A lot of excited kids.